Hello, a new product we're looking at today from GepRC, and it is a VTX by the way, it's called the GepRad Mini VTX. And I don't think this is the first in the line, because I thought, oh, I'll just double check the specs on the website. I couldn't find the exact model, but there's been various models before, also called the GepRad Mini. This one is a 20mm size stack, and it goes up to 1 watt of power. I'll get it out of the box, but I think we're going to need to go to some close-up to see what's happening. But it's this little block here. I guess it's sort of in this very solid block, because if it can do up to 1 watt, then it's going to generate some heat, and it needs some heat. It needs something to dissipate that heat, and this whole surround possibly works as a heat shield there. So we got some bits in the box. Let's go up to close up. We'll see what else is there, see how it works, and we'll put it on a quad and fly it. I think a quad. Yeah, we'll find something and we'll fly it with this. Okay, so let's have a bit more of a close-up of what's in the box here, and you get your general instruction sheet, which is actually quite involved, and it tells me, you know, different ways to configure it, whether you're going to power the camera directly or you're going to go via the flight controller. It tells me things like this. This works via IRC Tramp. We got some QR codes to scan things. All good. This is a close-up of the VTX itself, and you see we've got solder points here and above, and we've also got sockets. That's what I mean about the sort of heat shield there. And then we seem to have some LEDs there. I'll check that in the manual. We've got a button for changing things if we want to, and we've got a, oh my god, my mind's gone blank and I've forgotten what that's called. That antenna connector, the push-in one, what's that called? Oh, I don't know. I've gone senile, I'm afraid. In this little bag, you've got some mounting options. You've got some little rubber things and some other larger screws to put in, depending how you want to mount it. You don't really need to mount these on soft things, but sometimes these days we've just got like long screws, and there's many ways of mounting. Obviously this is a 20 by 20 mil. Then we got a couple of sort of, I say, pre-wired and semi-pre-wired cables. This one here is if you're powering the camera straight off the VTX and goes on this side, and this other one just wired up on one side, and you can obviously solder on to your flight controller, or if you've got connectors on your flight controller, join the wire or do something with those. Finally, we've got these two, and I finally remembered the name of this. It's Mmcx Adapter, isn't it? So you've got this one if you want to supply your own SMA based antenna. You just attach that on and screw that in. This one basically for your smaller builds, so you sort of sub 3-inch things, you'd have this little whip type antenna coming out, or alternatively, once again, if you want to supply your own antenna, you've got a few like this Rush FPV Cherry that will directly attach, and you can do it that way. So as I said, power goes all the way up to 1 watt, which is pretty damn powerful. And you know, normally I don't need to go beyond 200 milliwatts. Oh, I just noticed you've got a nice mic there as well, so we'll check out what the sound's like. But yeah, what I need to do first, of course, is find something I can put this on. Now I've got an awful lot of built up and ready to go 5-inch quads hanging on the wall, but they're all, with the exception of 2, 30 by 30 mil stacks. And with those other two, I'm pretty sure that the VTX is very much tied into the flight controller. So I have to check out what 3 inches I've got about. I haven't got any hanging on the wall. They're all put away somewhere. So let me see what I've got. We can get that installed. It looks pretty damn easy to install. Get it set up, and then we can see what the video quality looks like from this guy. So after a bit of thought, I decided to put it on this guy. This is the Aquila frame, and this had this guy installed. This is the Rush FPV Tiny Tank, and it's got a Cherry antenna, and I think it's one of the best VTXs out there. And I know I get a lot of comments about why is your video so clean. Also, this can go a decent distance. It's got a GPS. We can, you know, easily get to 1 kilometer and see what the picture looks like, and we get a good comparison between something we already know is very good. So I have wired this guy up a little bit long on the wire. And I've got the same Cherry antenna, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to install it. Now this doesn't, there's not enough space to install on the main stack on this one, so just like the previous one, it's basically going to sit at the back here, and sort of just sort itself out from there. I did notice on this one, people saying, well, it's looking a bit wobbly. When I looked at the stack, because I had to get the stack up to get the cable out, I had 2 screws missing and the other ones were kind of loose, so I was thinking that was possibly rattling around a little bit. So we'll try and get that a little bit more stable, but let's connect it up and just make sure it works. I need to do a couple of changes here. This is set up to work with this one, which is on Smart Audio, and this one is IRC Tramp. So I need to get the VTX table, I need to swap the port over. So let's do that, let's install it and let's check it out. Okay, we've got the VTX installed under there. So let's power this up. And before everybody panics and says, oh my god, you've got the props on, I've also got my radio on. This is not a new build. I trust it. I know it's not just going to randomly power up. But, you know, each to their own in terms of the risks you're willing to take. Obviously, if you're not 100% confident, take the props off. I am confident. Okay, so we've got a good picture there. Flashing, basically it's telling you what it is. So it flashes everything up and then it flashes how many greens? Everything, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. What's that mean? Where's the manual? Oh, I see. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they're all flashing at the same point. Let me just see if I can focus the camera on this. 1, 2. So you see the green light flashes 5 times, all the rest just flash once. So you got the blue and the green flashing once. And I think this refers to the setup, because if you look at this, this is how you'd actually sort of set it if you were doing the manually with the button. And it basically means 1 flash of the blue light equals channel 1, 5 flashes of the green light equals band R, and 1 flash of the red light equals 25 milliwatts. And of course we can check that by just changing channel. If we look here, I'm going to use my radio and I'm going to say features, VTX, can't see that, can you? And if we go down to channel, let's go to 2, set that, let's change the channel on this. So we're now on R2 there, as you can just see in the top. And if we now look at this, we get an indication of so you had 2 flashes of the blue, 1 flash of the red for power, and 5 flashes of the green, which means we're on race band, which all looks good. And this is obviously working as far as changing channels and stuff goes. So I'm going to just change that back to R1, and then I'll take it out for fly. We'll try it on 25 milliwatts. We'll up the power, see what we get, and we'll of course try it at a reasonable range, about 1 kilometre if we can. See what we get. Let's fly it next. Okay, looks like we're ready to check this VTX out, see what it can do. We'll start at 25 milliwatts. We'll build it up in a different place today. The field's there, although you can't see any. It's open, so the cows can run through. The field over there has cows. I'm into this bit, which you might see me fly over, which is actually pretty high. Don't crash in like barley or wheat or whatever it is, because you won't get it back very easily, and the farmer will be very annoyed of having it trampled. The wind is quite strong, but it's blowing in this way, which allows me to go out over there, although my range is slightly restricted because of course I'd have a couple of 100 metres back that way, and now I don't. But let's see how it goes. And I've got some slightly bigger batteries to try out on this one as well, see how it carries them. Yeah, let's get flying.
Well, after waiting around a few minutes to get enough satellites, we're up in the air and ready to test on 25 milliwatts. What I'm expecting from 25 milliwatts is functional to about 500 metres and then kind of drops off a bit after that. At least that's what I'm used to with the previous sorts of VTXs. This quad is still bobbling around a bit, but it is really quite windy out here, and it's like, oh well, it's not the worst thing ever. It's not something I expect super smooth footage from, but I might work on it a little bit more, try and get this a bit better. But I really need a day when it's not quite blowing around so much. I'm having to angle the quad into the wind a little bit to stop it drifting. And we're coming up to around the 400 metre mark, still looking fairly good. I'm trying to keep the height at a reasonable level, not go too high, but also not go too low, which is just going to damage the picture. And at 500 metres, doing pretty well. It's starting to get a little bit noisy. You can start to see, yeah, I'd call it generally noise. It's like this very low sort of static you can kind of see in the sky and the clouds. But it seems to be dropping off really nice and gentle in a nice little sort of linear fashion. You can kind of imagine as you go further and further, it's going to drop worse and worse. Sometimes with VTXs, it's like they fall off a cliff. The picture suddenly goes really, really badly. This is holding up okay, and I'm thinking, oh, you know what, I'm going to see if I can get to 1 kilometre. I don't want to go any further because I feel that the picture might get even worse when I turn around and the antenna is going to be at the back of the quad. But there's our kilometre, so let's do our turn and see how it goes. At the moment, I'm fairly impressed on 25 milliwatts. And we've got a few speckles appearing on the screen, a lot noisier. You can see sort of little blocks of colour appearing over the field there. But generally speaking, this is very good image for 25 milliwatts. I wouldn't normally take this sort of power out to 1 kilometre because, you know, it's not about, you don't want to go that distance on it. It's more susceptible to getting hit by other interference if there's other sources around you. But in terms of, like, you know, flying in a couple of fields around, you'll have absolutely no problems here if you're racing 25 milliwatts. This is giving a really nice picture, so really impressed with this. I took a little bit longer getting back because some people walked past and initially were scared to walk past me, and I was explained that I was away, and then they were asking about if I was doing some sort of survey for the farm, and I was sort of just explaining I was just flying, and then they were like, well, I can't see it, where is it? And I had to explain it was small and maybe not the sort of one they've seen, and we were having a bit of a chat there. But, you know, we brought it down in the end, all safe and sound. And then what I did is swapped the power over to 200 milliwatts and changed the battery, set off again. 200 I'm expecting to be very clean all the way along because I'm basing this about what my Rush FPV VTX can do, and that's very clean and looks good. So let's fast forward on to where we're approaching 1 kilometre. And what we had at 25 milliwatts here, we had a little bit of noise starting to creep in after 500 metres or so. And it's not 100% clean as we're getting 1 kilometre on 200 milliwatts. There's a little bit of noise there. I would say it's not quite as clean as the Rush FPV VTX, but it's doing a pretty good job. I can just see, you know, a little bit of noise and colour starting to appear in those clouds that really shouldn't be there in other cases. And as we do the turn here, we get a little bit more of that noise. You can see sort of weird colour blotches appearing in the fields, and that's kind of part of this noise situation. So not as clean, but it's doing a fairly decent job. It's definitely doing a lot worse as we turn around. Just like the 25 milliwatts, we got these sort of speckles of static appearing there, but it seems to clear itself up a little bit quicker. So as we're coming back, it's getting better and better and better. And by the time we're within about 500 metres of ourselves, it's much cleaner again as it was when we were first setting off. It seems like a much worse picture with the antenna at the back. Of course, there's some blockage there, but much more noticeable, I notice, on this VTX over my previous one. But again, pretty good. Nice picture. I'm sure we could have gone further, but why don't we just whack it up all the way to 1 watt and see what happens? Obviously, there's the 500 milliwatt rating, but we can kind of decide what we can interpolate that idea. Like, this is 200 milliwatts, let's show you 1 watt, and you can figure out what 500 milliwatts would have looked like. Okay, we're up to 1 watt, or as we call it in the OSD, max, because we're at max power. And I'm kind of expecting decent things here from 1 watt. I mean, it was pretty clear on 200. I would expect it to be less noisy on 1 watt because we're obviously upping the power by quite a bit. So let's speed along a bit and get to the point where we started seeing noise at sort of 200 milliwatts and lots of noise at 500. And we're up here at just going on for 1 kilometre. We've dropped the altitude a little bit, so we're at like 30 metres. And we're getting a little bit of noise, but nothing to write home about. I would call this the cleanest we've had certainly so far out of it at this sort of distance. And no doubt we could go for further and not really getting into any problems. So let's turn it round and see if we get any more of those speckles that we got last time on the turn. And a little bit of noise, but pretty good overall. Little flashes here and there, but definitely better than 200. Much better than 25, obviously. And you can kind of see the wind here as I'm sort of leaning the quad over at about a 30-degree angle to stop me blowing over to the right hand side. One curious thing about this, I'm recording this on my power play and I'm noticing there's no sound coming through. Now it could have been that I didn't have it plugged in properly, so I was missing the bit that would give me the sound, but I felt it was all sort of connected in with the video on this one, so that's curious because it's got that microphone. But as it was, I found out that it did record on the Fat Sharks. Here's the story. I decided I wanted to go a little bit further, so I decided to put on a larger battery and fly on a bit more. And this is my Fat Shark recording because my power play decided to turn off instead of recording it. So fortunately I was recording on my Fat Sharks as well. And the Fat Sharks did pick up the prop noise. It sounds a bit like it's just noise, but you can hear the difference in the pitch of the props when I change the throttle. So yeah, the microphone works. It's not particularly great, and you can hear some buzzing. So yeah, I decided to fly on a little bit further, just out to about 2 kilometers. I decided to see how this would handle things. And aside from the fact that the DVR on the Fat Sharks isn't as good as the power play, the picture overall I think is pretty good. We start to get noise introducing somewhere around 1.5 kilometers, but it varies. It sort of comes in and out. And our height's somewhere between about 70 meters and 100 meters, generally speaking. But this is overall pretty good image for 2K. The only thing I would say about it is, I've been out to greater distances than this before, although generally not on the quad. I don't generally fly quads this far, and the image has been cleaner on other VTXs. So it does a pretty good job, this VTX. It's just not the best I've seen, but it certainly is in a very nice package. And we did make it back safely. This is going back to a previous flight because I just wanted to show you the landing approach. I didn't really think it through, so I had to sort of come along and then into wind. This is Graham the farmer standing next to me. And then I kind of had to sort of find my landing map, which I put out the way just in case someone came across, and sort of just whack it on there and hope for the best. There you go, that little GepRC VTX did quite a good job. As I said, I don't think it's quite as clean as the Rush FPV VTX I was using before. I was getting a little bit of noise a little bit earlier, but it's certainly got some distance, especially when we whack the power up to full. One thing I did particularly like about it though is the way the video degraded. It wasn't a sudden like poof, the video is gone. You could see it was falling off, and it was doing it in a nice gradual way. And you could sort of feel confident about like, oh, the video's starting to go, but I can carry on because it's going to continue degrading at that rate. I've got like another, well, in that case, probably another kilometre or two before I'd have to turn around and do things. What I did like about it, what I said is like, I think it comes in a nice package, was about the sort of physical VTX itself. I like the fact it's all built basically within a heatsink. You've got several mounting options. It says you must use those rubber grommets if you're using screws on carbon, so it doesn't basically conduct electricity through the carbon into the thing. I've got like a sticky pad underneath this, so I'm safe there. I also like the fact that you could plug a camera directly into it, but you also had basically a video in signal to pass back to the FC as if that was the camera. So it would take the signal from the camera, pass it back to the FC, and the FC would pass it back to the VTX with the OSD for the transmission, which is pretty neat. Nice and easy to set up, and yeah, it worked pretty well. Microphone was a bit weird. I had a sound in Fat Sharks, but not the power play. I don't know why. It's not particularly great sound. You could hear the sort of props going around because it was sort of cutting off. You could hear the zig 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 sort of sound, but on a very high frequency. I've never flown with sound before. I just find the noise really annoying, but it's there if you want it, depending how you record it, of course. Yeah, nice VTX, well worth checking out if you're in the market for one. So yeah, this has been the GepRC Rad Mini VTX. It goes all the way up to 1000 milliwatts if that's the sort of thing you want. If you're doing long range, if you're limited to 25 milliwatts, which of course many of us legally are, very good picture from 25 milliwatts so far. I don't normally do a kilometre on 25 milliwatts before. This managed it without a problem, which I think is quite cool. Anyway, many thanks for GepRC for supplying that for me, and you can find links down below, of course, where you can check that out in more detail. I hope this review's been helpful, and I will catch you next one. Bye for now. Well, you've made it to the end of the video, so thanks once again for watching. If you like what you saw, then please consider subscribing, and if you really like what you saw, then be sure to check out the link to my blog for a variety of ways in which you can help support this channel.